The city was quiet that night, wrapped in a light fog that made the streetlights look like soft, blurry stars. Sophia walked slowly along the riverside path, her hands buried deep in her coat pockets, her mind far away from the peaceful scenery around her. Tonight was supposed to be her last night. For months, Sophia had been fighting a battle no one around her fully understood. A quiet illness, hidden behind her calm smile, had drained her strength, her hope, and slowly her will to keep going. She had written a letter earlier that evening, folded neatly in her bag, addressed to no one in particular. Tonight she had decided she would finally let go of the pain she had carried alone for so long. She stopped near the old bridge that crossed the river, watching the dark water flow beneath it. The world felt distant, almost unreal, like she was already halfway gone from it. But fate, it seemed, had other plans for her that night. A sudden screech of tires broke the silence. Sophia turned just in time to see two black cars speeding down the empty street beside the bridge, followed by the sharp, terrifying sound of gunfire. She froze, her body reacting too slowly to the danger suddenly surrounding her. A bullet shattered the street lamp beside her, sending sparks and glass raining down. Sophia dropped to the ground instinctively, her heart pounding harder than it had in months. For someone who had been ready to give up her life just moments ago, the fear flooding through her now felt strangely, painfully alive. Through the chaos, a strong hand suddenly grabbed her arm, pulling her hard behind a large concrete pillar just as more bullets struck the spot where she had been standing. "Stay down," a deep voice ordered. Sophia looked up, startled, into the sharp, focused eyes of a man she had never seen before. He was tall, dressed in a dark coat, his expression calm despite the danger around them, like this wasn't his first time facing gunfire. He held a gun of his own, firing back with practiced precision toward the attacking cars. Within moments the gunfire stopped. The black cars sped away into the foggy night, leaving behind a heavy, ringing silence. The stranger turned to Sophia, his eyes scanning her quickly for injuries. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice firm but not unkind. Sophia shook her head, still trying to process what had just happened. I don't understand. Who were they? Why?" "Not here," the man said sharply, glancing around at the empty street. "We need to move. Now." Before Sophia could argue, he took her arm gently but firmly, guiding her quickly away from the bridge toward a black car parked nearby. Her mind was spinning, her earlier plans for the night completely forgotten in the shock of what had just occurred. "Wait," she said, pulling back slightly. "I don't even know who you are." The man paused, studying her for a brief moment. "My name is Damon," he said simply. "And right now you're safer with me than standing alone on that bridge." Something about the certainty in his voice made Sophia's fear ease, just slightly. Against every instinct telling her to run in the opposite direction, she found herself climbing into the car beside him. As they drove through the quiet city streets, Sophia stared out the window, her thoughts a confusing mix of fear, shock, and something she hadn't felt in a long time, the small, unexpected pull of curiosity about what would happen next. "Those men?" she finally asked, breaking the silence. "Were they trying to kill you?" Damon's jaw tightened slightly. "Yes," he admitted. "It's complicated. And I just happened to be standing in the middle of it," Sophia said quietly, almost to herself. "You happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time," Damon said, glancing at her briefly. "For that I'm sorry." Sophia looked down at her hands, thinking about the letter still folded in her bag, about the plans she had made just hours earlier. Somehow being caught in a stranger's dangerous world felt less frightening than the emptiness she had been carrying alone. They arrived at a large, quiet house on the edge of the city, hidden behind tall gates and thick trees. Damon led her inside, into a warm, softly lit living room, worlds away from the cold fear of the bridge. "You'll be safe here tonight," he said. "Tomorrow we'll figure out what to do next." Sophia sat down slowly on a large couch, her body finally beginning to shake from the delayed shock of everything that had happened. Damon noticed, disappearing briefly before returning with a warm blanket and a cup of tea, setting them gently beside her without a word. It was a small gesture, simple and quiet, but it struck Sophia deeply. She hadn't expected kindness from a man who had just been in a gunfight on a public street. "Thank you," she whispered, wrapping her hands around the warm cup. Damon nodded, watching her carefully. "Get some rest," he said. "You're safe now." As exhaustion finally began pulling Sophia toward sleep, her mind drifted back to the letter still in her bag, to the plans she had made just hours before everything changed. She didn't know why fate had pulled her into this dangerous man's world tonight, but for the first time in a long time, she found herself wondering what tomorrow might bring instead of wishing it would never come. Little did she know, as she drifted off to sleep on that unfamiliar couch, that the man watching over her quietly from across the room carried far more secrets, and far more danger, than she could have ever imagined. Sunlight crept through the curtains when Sophia finally woke up, confused for a moment about where she was. The soft couch, the warm blanket, the unfamiliar room, none of it matched her small apartment. Then the memories came rushing back. The bridge, the gunfire, the stranger who had pulled her to safety. She sat up slowly, glancing around the quiet living room. It was tastefully decorated, expensive but simple, with large windows overlooking a private garden. Everything about this place spoke of money and power, yet it didn't feel cold. It felt oddly peaceful. "You're awake," a familiar voice said from the doorway. Sophia turned to see Damon standing there, dressed casually now, though his sharp eyes still carried the same alert focus she remembered from the night before. He walked in, placing a tray with breakfast on the table in front of her. "How are you feeling?" he asked, sitting across from her. "Confused, mostly," Sophia admitted, wrapping her hands around a warm mug of coffee he handed her. "Yesterday feels like a dream. Or a nightmare, depending on how you look at it." Damon's lips curved into the smallest hint of a smile. "Fair enough." His expression grew more serious. "We need to talk about what happens next." Sophia's stomach tightened slightly. "What do you mean?" "The men who attacked us last night," Damon said carefully, "they saw your face. That means they might try to use you to get to me or eliminate you as a witness. Either way, you're not safe returning to your normal life just yet." The weight of his words settled over Sophia slowly. Just yesterday she had been planning to leave her life behind entirely, in her own quiet way. Now, someone else's dangerous world was threatening to end it for her instead, in a way she never wanted. "This is insane," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "Yesterday my biggest problem was—" She stopped herself, looking away. Damon studied her carefully, noticing the sudden change in her expression. "Was what?" he asked gently. Sophia shook her head, avoiding his gaze. "It doesn't matter now." But Damon didn't look convinced. His eyes moved briefly to her bag, sitting on the side table where he had placed it the night before. Sophia followed his gaze and felt her heart skip. The corner of her folded letter was peeking out from the top. Before she could stop him, Damon reached over and gently pulled the letter free, his eyes scanning the first few lines. Sophia felt her face go pale, embarrassment and fear crashing over her at once. "Please," she said quickly, reaching for it. "That's private." Damon didn't hand it back immediately. Instead, he looked at her with an expression she hadn't expected, not judgment but quiet understanding. "You were planning to say goodbye," he said softly. It wasn't a question. Sophia's eyes filled with tears. She quickly tried to blink away. "It's not something I expect you to understand," she said, her voice trembling. "You don't know what it's like to feel so tired of fighting a battle no one else can see." Damon was quiet for a long moment, setting the letter down gently on the table between them instead of returning it to her hands. "You're right," he said finally. "I don't fully understand your battle. But I understand loss. I understand feeling like the weight of everything is too heavy to carry alone." Sophia looked up at him, surprised by the honesty in his voice. "I lost my younger brother 3 years ago," Damon continued quietly. "He was the only person in this world who saw me as more than the empire I was born into. After he was gone, I understood what it felt like to want to simply stop existing, even if I never made a plan the way you did." The room fell silent, both of them sitting with the weight of unspoken pain between them. "I'm not telling you this for sympathy," Damon said after a moment. "I'm telling you because I don't think fate pulled you into that gunfire by accident last night. Whatever plans you had, they're on hold now, whether either of us likes it or not." Sophia wiped her eyes, feeling strangely exposed, yet also strangely understood for the first time in longer than she could remember. "So what happens now?" she asked quietly. "Now," Damon said, his voice steadier, more purposeful, "you stay here where it's safe until we handle the threat against you. And maybe," he added more gently, "you let yourself see that there might still be reasons worth staying for." Sophia didn't respond right away. Part of her wanted to argue, to insist she could handle things on her own, the way she always had. But another part of her, quieter and more honest, recognized the strange gift being offered to her. A pause, a moment to breathe before deciding anything permanent about her life. "Okay," she finally said softly. "I'll stay. For now." Damon nodded, something like relief passing briefly over his usually guarded expression. "Good," he said. "I'll have my men keep watch outside." You should rest more today. We'll talk properly once you're feeling stronger. As he stood to leave the room, Sophia's eyes drifted to her letter still resting on the table. For the first time in months, she found herself hesitating over the words she had written, wondering if perhaps they weren't as final as she had believed them to be the night before. But just as Damon reached the doorway, his phone buzzed sharply. He glanced at the screen, his expression darkening instantly. "What is it?" Sophia asked, noticing the sudden tension in his shoulders. Damon turned back to her, his voice low and serious. "The men from last night," he said. "They've traced you back to this house." "Traced back here?" Sophia repeated, her voice rising with fear. "How is that even possible?" Damon's jaw tightened as he read the message again. "One of my men spotted a car circling the property twice in the last hour. Same model as the ones from last night." He looked up at her. "They're not guessing anymore. They know exactly where you are." Sophia felt the fear from the night before rushing back, colder and sharper this time. "What do we do?" "We move you somewhere safer," Damon said, already walking toward the hallway, his voice shifting into calm, controlled command. "Pack anything you need. We leave in 10 minutes. Sophia didn't have much to pack, only the small bag she'd carried the night before, but she found herself moving quickly, following the urgency in Damon's tone. Within minutes, they were back in the black car, speeding away from the quiet house through a hidden back road Sophia hadn't noticed the night before. "Where are we going?" she asked, glancing anxiously out the rear window. "Somewhere they won't think to look." "Not yet, anyway," Damon replied, his eyes constantly checking the mirrors. They drove for nearly an hour, weaving through smaller streets and quiet neighborhoods, until they finally arrived at a modest, unremarkable apartment building in a part of the city Sophia had never visited. It looked nothing like Damon's grand estate, simple, plain, easily overlooked. "This is one of my safe houses," Damon explained, leading her up a narrow staircase. "Very few people know it exists. You'll be secure here." The apartment inside was small but comfortable, clearly stocked and prepared for emergencies like this one. Sophia sat down slowly on the small couch, her mind still racing from the sudden escape. "How long will I need to stay hidden like this?" she asked quietly. Damon sat across from her, his expression thoughtful. "Until we deal with the people responsible. It shouldn't have gotten this far already. Someone gave them information quickly, which means—" He paused, frustration flashing briefly across his face. "Which means what?" Sophia pressed. "Which means there might be someone close to me feeding them information," Damon admitted reluctantly. "A leak within my own organization." Sophia's eyes widened. That's dangerous for you too, isn't it?" Damon nodded grimly. "It is. But it's not your problem to worry about." "It became my problem the moment you pulled me away from that bridge," Sophia said, surprising herself with the sudden firmness in her voice. Damon studied her for a long moment, something like respect flickering behind his guarded expression. "You're stronger than you give yourself credit for," he said quietly. Sophia looked down, uncomfortable with the compliment. "I didn't feel very strong last night writing that letter." "Strength isn't about never feeling weak," Damon said gently. "It's about still being here despite it." The words settled deeply into Sophia's chest, resonating with something she hadn't allowed herself to consider in a long time. Maybe survival itself, even on the hardest days, counted as its own kind of strength. Over the following days, Sophia and Damon settled into a strange, quiet routine within the small safe house. Damon would leave briefly each day to manage his business affairs, always returning with updates, always careful to keep her informed without overwhelming her with the darker details of his world. Slowly, Sophia found herself opening up in ways she hadn't expected. She told him about her illness, the quiet battle she had fought largely alone for months, the exhaustion of pretending to be fine for people who wouldn't understand. Damon listened without judgment, offering neither pity nor easy solutions, simply presence and understanding. In turn, Damon shared pieces of his own life, the pressure of inheriting his family's dangerous empire at a young age, the loss of his brother, the loneliness of a world where trust was a rare and dangerous luxury. One quiet evening, as they sat together on the small balcony overlooking the city lights, Sophia found herself studying Damon's face, illuminated softly by the evening glow. "Can I ask you something?" she said quietly. "Of course," Damon replied. "Do you ever regret this life? The danger, the constant fighting, the fact that even simple mornings like this one might not last." Damon considered her question carefully before answering. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But then moments like this happen and I remember why staying alive, staying present, still matters." He glanced at her meaningfully. Even in the middle of chaos. Sophia felt her heart flutter unexpectedly at his words, a feeling she hadn't experienced in longer than she could remember. Despite everything, the danger, the uncertainty, the fear still lingering just beneath the surface, she found herself for the first time in months genuinely glad to still be here. But their quiet moment was interrupted suddenly by Damon's phone buzzing sharply against the table. He answered quickly, his expression shifting instantly from calm to alarmed as he listened to the voice on the other end. "We'll be there," he said finally, ending the call with a tense expression. "What's happened?" Sophia asked, her earlier peace replaced by immediate worry. Damon looked at her seriously. "We found the leak," he said. "But it's someone neither of us expected." Damon's face remained tense as he ended the call, his mind clearly racing through the implications of what he had just learned. Sophia watched him carefully, her earlier peace completely replaced by anxious curiosity. "Who is it?" she asked. "Who's been leaking information?" Damon hesitated, running a hand through his hair. "My cousin Elias," he said finally. "He's been working alongside me for years. I trusted him completely." Sophia's eyes widened. "Why would he betray you?" "That's exactly what I intend to find out," Damon said grimly, standing up and grabbing his jacket. "Stay here. Lock the doors behind me. I'll have 2 of my most trusted men outside for protection." "Wait," Sophia said, standing quickly. "Is it safe for you to confront him alone?" Damon paused at the door, looking back at her with a small, reassuring smile. "I won't be alone. And don't worry about me. This isn't the first betrayal I've had to handle." Despite his confident words, Sophia couldn't shake the worry settling in her chest as she watched him leave. The apartment suddenly felt too quiet, too empty, without his steady presence beside her. Hours passed slowly. Sophia paced the small apartment, glancing repeatedly at the door, her mind spinning with worst-case scenarios. Finally, just as the sun began setting outside, she heard the door unlock, and Damon stepped back inside, looking exhausted but unharmed. "Are you okay?" Sophia rushed toward him, relief flooding through her. Damon nodded, though his expression remained troubled. "Elias admitted everything," he said quietly, sitting down heavily on the couch. "He's been working with Marcus Renner, a rival family boss who's held a grudge against my father for years." "Why would your cousin do something like that?" Sophia asked, sitting beside him. Damon sighed deeply. "Money mostly. And resentment. He always felt overlooked, like he lived in my shadow within the family business. Renner offered him a way to finally step out from behind me." "What happens to him now?" Sophia asked carefully. Damon's expression darkened slightly. "In my world, betrayal has serious consequences. But Elias is still family. I've decided to send him away instead, far from the business entirely. It's more mercy than many would receive for what he's done." Sophia studied him quietly, noticing the conflict clearly written across his face, loyalty and anger fighting against family love and old memories. "That sounds like a difficult decision," she said gently. "It was," Damon admitted. "But I couldn't bring myself to be as ruthless as my father would have been in my place." A comfortable silence settled between them, filled with quiet understanding rather than tension. After a moment, Damon looked at her seriously. "There's something else," he said. "Marcus Renner didn't just want information about my operations. Sophia, he specifically wanted to know about you." Sophia's chest tightened. "Me? Why would he care about me at all?" Damon's expression grew serious. "Because your last name isn't as unfamiliar to my family as I initially thought." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Sophia, is your father's name Richard Hale?" Sophia froze, her heart skipping painfully. "Yes," she whispered. "How do you know that name?" Damon's jaw tightened. "Because years ago my family was involved in a business conflict with your father. A conflict that ended badly, with consequences that affected your family financially and personally." Sophia felt the room spin slightly around her. "Are you saying your family is the reason my father lost everything? The reason he—" She stopped, unable to finish the sentence, memories of her father's decline flooding back painfully. Damon's guilt was evident in his expression. "I didn't know the full connection until today," he said quietly. "But yes, my family's actions against your father years ago likely played a significant role in what happened to him afterward." Sophia stood abruptly, overwhelmed by the sudden revelation. "So this whole time," she said, her voice trembling with confusion and hurt, "you've been protecting the daughter of a man your own family destroyed?" "Sophia, please," Damon said, standing to face her directly. "I understand this is difficult to hear, but I promise you, None of this changes what's happened between us these past few days. Doesn't it? Sophia asked, tears blurring her vision. How can I trust any of this, knowing your family's history with mine? Damon stepped closer, his voice gentle but firm. I can't undo what happened in the past. But I can promise you this, every choice I've made since pulling you from that bridge has been genuine. My concern for you, my growing feelings, none of that is connected to my family's past mistakes. Sophia wiped her eyes, torn between the pain of this new revelation and the undeniable connection she had built with Damon over the past several days. I need time, she finally whispered. Time to process all of this. Damon nodded slowly, respecting her request despite the visible pain in his own eyes. Take all the time you need, he said quietly. I'll be here whenever you're ready to talk again. As Sophia retreated to the small bedroom alone, her mind swirling with conflicting emotions, she couldn't ignore the unsettling thought creeping into her mind. If Renner knew about her connection to Damon's family, how far would he go to use that painful history against both of them? Sophia barely slept that night, her mind replaying Damon's revelation over and over. Her father's downfall, the quiet sadness that had followed her family for years, all connected somehow to the man who had saved her life just days ago. By morning, exhaustion and confusion had settled heavily over her, but she still had no clear answers. She found Damon in the small kitchen, quietly making coffee, his expression tired as well, as though he hadn't slept much either. Morning, he said carefully, watching her reaction closely. Morning, Sophia replied, her voice softer than she intended. They stood in silence for a moment before Sophia finally spoke. I couldn't stop thinking about everything last night. Damon nodded, setting down his cup. I understand if you need distance from me, Sophia. Given the truth about my family. It's not that simple, Sophia admitted. Yes, I'm angry about my father's past. Confused, hurt. But none of that changes what you've done for me the past few days. You saved my life, Damon. More than once. Before Damon could respond, his phone rang sharply, interrupting their moment. He answered quickly, his expression shifting into alarm as he listened. They found her, he said urgently after hanging up. Renner's men just left a message. They have Elena's friend, Marisol, taken from the diner where she works. They're using her to lure Sophia out. Sophia's blood ran cold. Marisol has nothing to do with any of this. They know that, Damon said grimly. That's exactly why they took her, to force your hand. Sophia's mind raced. Marisol was her closest friend, the only person who had checked on her regularly during her illness, the one bright light during her darkest days. She couldn't let her suffer because of a war she hadn't chosen. We have to help her, Sophia said firmly. It's a trap, Damon warned. Renner wants you there specifically. If you go, you're walking directly into danger. And if I don't go, Marisol pays the price for something that isn't her fault, Sophia said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. I won't let that happen. Damon studied her for a long moment, clearly torn between protecting her and respecting her fierce loyalty to her friend. If you're going, then I'm not letting you go alone, he finally said. We do this together, carefully, with a real plan. Not recklessly. Within the hour, Damon had assembled a small, trusted team, carefully planning their approach to the abandoned factory where Renner's men were holding Marisol. Sophia insisted on coming along, despite Damon's obvious worry, refusing to sit safely aside while her friend's life hung in danger. As they approached the meeting point that evening, tension hung heavily in the air. The factory loomed ahead, dark and silent, hiding the danger waiting within. Stay close to me, Damon instructed quietly. No matter what happens. Sophia nodded, her heart pounding as they moved carefully toward the entrance. Inside, Marisol sat tied to a chair, frightened but unharmed, guarded by several of Renner's men. Marcus Renner himself stood nearby, his cold smile widening as Sophia and Damon entered. Ah, the happy couple, Renner said mockingly. How touching. Let her go, Renner, Damon said firmly. This is between you and me. Oh, I disagree, Renner replied smoothly. This has always been about more than just you, Damon. Your family destroyed mine financially years ago, just as they destroyed Sophia's father. It seems fitting that both of your worlds should collide painfully, don't you think? Sophia stepped forward despite Damon's protective grip on her arm. Let Marisol go, she said firmly. She has nothing to do with any of this. Take your anger out on me if you must, but leave her out of it. Renner studied Sophia carefully, clearly intrigued by her boldness. Interesting, he mused. Perhaps there's more strength in you than I anticipated. Suddenly, Chaos erupted as Damon's hidden men, positioned carefully beforehand, moved swiftly to disarm Renner's guards. In the confusion, Damon rushed forward, freeing Marisol quickly while Sophia stayed close, her heart pounding from the sudden action around her. Renner, seeing his plan unraveling, pulled a hidden weapon, aiming directly at Sophia in a final desperate act of vengeance. Damon reacted instantly, throwing himself between them, taking the impact meant for her as gunfire briefly erupted through the factory. "Damon!" Sophia screamed, catching him as he stumbled, blood quickly staining his shirt from a wound near his shoulder. Damon's men quickly subdued Renner, ending the immediate danger, but Sophia's focus remained entirely on Damon, fear gripping her chest as she pressed her hands against his wound. "Stay with me," she pleaded desperately, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Damon, stay with me." Damon, despite his pain, managed a weak, reassuring smile. "I'm not going anywhere," he whispered. "Not when I finally have a reason worth staying for." As emergency medical help rushed to the scene, Sophia held tightly onto Damon's hand, realizing clearly now, more than ever, exactly how much this dangerous, complicated man had come to mean to her, enough that the thought of losing him now felt more unbearable than anything she had previously faced alone. The hospital hallway felt endless as Sophia paced back and forth, her hands still trembling from the events at the factory. Marisol sat quietly beside her, shaken but grateful to be safe, watching her friend with quiet concern. "He's going to be okay, Sophia," Marisol said gently. "The doctor said the wound wasn't as deep as it looked." Sophia nodded, though the fear from watching Damon collapse in her arms still lingered vividly in her mind. She hadn't realized how deeply she had come to care for him until the terrifying possibility of losing him became real. After what felt like hours, a doctor finally stepped out, giving her a reassuring nod. "He's stable. Lost some blood, but he'll make a full recovery. You can see him now if you'd like." Relief flooded through Sophia as she rushed into the room. Damon lay resting against the pillows, pale but awake, his eyes softening the moment he saw her. "Hey," he said weakly, managing a small smile. "You scared me," Sophia said, sitting carefully beside his bed, taking his hand gently in hers. "Never do that again." "I couldn't just stand there and let him hurt you," Damon replied softly. "Not when I've finally found something worth protecting with everything I have." Sophia felt tears well up again, but this time from relief rather than fear. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything. For saving me that night on the bridge, for giving me a reason to keep going, and now for risking your life for mine." Damon squeezed her hand gently. "You saved yourself, Sophia. I just gave you a reason to want to." Over the following weeks, as Damon recovered fully from his injury, Renner's remaining criminal network was carefully dismantled, ensuring lasting peace and safety for both Damon's family and Sophia's future. Elias, Damon's cousin, was sent far away to start a quiet new life, given a second chance despite his earlier betrayal. Sophia, meanwhile, found herself slowly rebuilding her own life, no longer burdened by the heavy secret she had carried alone for so long. With Damon's support, she sought proper medical treatment for her illness, finally allowing herself the help she had denied herself for months. One quiet afternoon, several weeks later, Sophia stood once again at the same bridge where her story had first taken its unexpected turn. The river flowed calmly beneath her, the same as it had that fateful night, yet everything about how she viewed it now felt entirely different. Damon approached quietly, standing beside her, watching the peaceful water below. "Bringing back memories?" he asked softly. Sophia smiled, leaning gently against his side. "This is where everything changed," she said. "Where I almost gave up entirely, and where you gave me a reason not to." Damon wrapped his arm gently around her shoulders. "I think fate had a strange way of guiding us both toward exactly what we needed, even through all the danger and pain to get here." "Do you regret any of it?" Sophia asked quietly. "The danger, the family secrets, everything we went through?" Damon considered her question seriously before answering. "I regret the pain my family caused yours, long before we ever met," he said honestly. "But I could never regret the moment I found you on this bridge. Even through everything dangerous that followed, it led me to you." Sophia turned to face him fully, her eyes reflecting a peace and hope she hadn't felt in longer than she could remember. "I was ready to say goodbye to everything that night," she admitted softly. "But because of you, I found something worth staying for instead." Damon gently touched her cheek, his eyes filled with quiet devotion. "And I was ready to risk everything I had built, everything I was, just for the chance to keep you safe," he said. "Because somewhere along the way, protecting you became more important to me than protecting my own empire." As the sun began setting softly behind them, casting warm colors across the quiet river, Sophia and Damon stood together, no longer defined by the darkness and danger that had brought them together, but instead by the quiet, powerful hope of a future they had both fought fiercely to protect. Their story, born from tragedy and danger, had become something neither of them expected. A story of healing, courage, and love strong enough to overcome even the deepest, most painful betrayals of the past.